The lower body is the key to Alcaraz's dynamic tennis style. When he sprints across the baseline or reacts to a sudden change in direction, his legs provide the burst that makes him appear almost airborne. His movement is not just quick, it's controlled, balanced, and calculated. That level of precision only comes from a foundation of deep leg strength and muscular endurance. The power in his shots begins from the ground up, with the force generated by his legs transferring through his core and into his swing. When you see him unleash a forehand that seems to defy logic, or a backhand hit while sliding at full speed, that's the product of well-conditioned leg muscles working in perfect synchronization. A major goal in his lower body training is improving balance and stability. These two qualities define his ability to stay low, move fluidly, and maintain control in high-speed rallies. On a tennis court, where the surface can shift from hard to clay to grass, the body constantly adjusts its balance point. Strong legs stabilize those movements, allowing Alcaraz to hit cleanly even when stretched wide or leaning off balance. This stability also protects him from falls or awkward landings, reducing injury risks that come with the constant stop-and-go rhythm of tennis. It's not just about strength. It's about the ability to control that strength under pressure. Training the legs also has profound effects on endurance and metabolism. The leg muscles, quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes, and calves, are among the largest and most active in the human body. When Alcaraz trains them intensely, his body burns more calories and his metabolism rises, improving his overall athletic conditioning. This doesn't just make him stronger, it makes him more resilient during long, grueling matches. When many players begin to fade in the fifth set, his legs keep driving him forward, supporting the same energy and power he had at the start. That capacity to sustain form, maintain quick footwork, and continue striking with precision even in fatigue is a hallmark of his physical preparation. There's also a psychological component to this kind of leg training. Alcaraz's confidence on court is closely tied to the way he moves. The smoother and faster he transitions between positions, the more natural his decision-making becomes. When his legs are primed and strong, he is able to dictate play, not just react to it. That's one reason he often dominates rallies. He's in position a split second earlier, ready to turn defense into offense. His lower body power translates into command over the game's tempo, giving him an edge not just in speed, but in mental control. The stability and balance generated by this rotational work contribute significantly to his ability to sustain high performance over long matches. By training the hips, trunk, and shoulders to work in unison, Alcaraz builds resilience in the face of rapid changes of direction, sudden lunges, and explosive recoveries. The same science that underlies hip rotation as a fundamental aspect of tennis ground strokes also shows that without it, the upper body and lower body become disconnected, leading to weaker shots and greater strain on the lumbar spine and shoulders. In Alcaraz's game, what this means practically is less wasted movement, tighter stroke mechanics, and more reliable execution under fatigue. His core becomes both a stabilizer and a power initiator. He uses it to brace his body during his lengthy rallies and unpredictable exchanges, enabling his arm to finish the movement in a controlled yet explosive fashion. Arm mobility and strength, while often thought of as simply racket arm attributes, deeply influenced by how well the trunk and hips rotate. The shoulder and arm do not work in isolation. They are downstream of a well-timed body turn. Research shows that In the self phase, for example, internal shoulder rotation contributes significantly to racket speed, but that internal rotation is much more effective when preceded and supported by trunk and hip rotation, rather than being attempted purely from the shoulder. For Alcaraz, this means his arm moves faster and more efficiently because his body has already set the kinetic chain in motion through the hips and trunk. The result is that his forehand crackles with power and his backhand remains crisp under pressure. Another major benefit of the rotational training is injury prevention and durability. Tennis is full of asymmetrical movements, sudden twists, one-leg lunges, reaching for wide balls, combined with high repetition and a fatigue. Without training the chain of core hip-shoulder rotation, the body tends to overuse the shoulder, lumbar spine, or one side of the torso, increasing the risk of strain or overuse injury. As one article notes, elite tennis players tend to present symmetrical rotational strength, meaning both sides of the trunk can rotate equally well, which reduces muscular imbalances. By building his rotational capacity, Alcaraz not only increases his shot potency, but also protects his joints and spine from excessive stress, which helps him stay fresh through tournaments and long matches. When he takes a moment to toss and catch one or more balls by hand, what he's really doing is sharpening the vital link between his eyes, his brain, and his hands. Juggling trains the eyes to track moving objects, the brain to interpret those visual cues quickly and accurately, and the hands to respond in kind. According to sports vision research, better hand-eye coordination allows athletes to respond faster to stimuli, execute movements more fluidly, and catch or hit targets with greater precision. For a tennis pro, this kind of stimulus is especially beneficial. In a rally, the ball is moving fast, and players must read spin, trajectory, speed, and position, all in a split second. The more attuned the player is to making the visual-to-motor connection seamlessly, the better the response. Reaching the ball in time, setting up the racket correctly, and delivering the stroke with accuracy and power. One study noted that in racket sports like tennis, good hand-eye coordination is essential for proper racket positioning, controlling arm velocity, and shot direction. Juggling doesn't only work for the straightforward connection of a ball and a hand. It also improves peripheral vision, rhythm, and anticipation. Expert jugglers have been shown to perform better in tasks requiring peripheral pointing and visual tracking, partly because their brains have adapted to constantly scanning, predicting, and acting on object movement. In Alcaraz's game, this translates to reading the opponent's shot, positioning himself earlier, preparing the racket earlier, and executing at pace. In tennis, the court is large. Opponents force players wide, deep, short, high, low. The movement demands are relentless. Agility gives a player like Alcaraz the ability to cover ground, to recover after a shot, and to position himself so that when the ball arrives, he is not making compensations, but striking from a prepared stance. Good movement means reaching the ball in a way that allows the racket to swing with optimal mechanics, rather than simply acting as a salvage attempt. When Alcaraz races to a wide forehand, pivots, and hits with apparent ease, the underlying difference is that his footwork and body alignment are trained to such a degree that the hit becomes a continuation of his movement rather than a disruption of it. Research supports this. One study of tennis players found that agility is significantly correlated with ground stroke ability. In fact, in younger players, grip strength, agility, and hand-eye coordination collectively accounted for over 75% of the variance in ground stroke proficiency. Another investigation demonstrated that targeted agility and change of direction work in tennis athletes produce statistically meaningful improvements in reactive agility tests and directional change performance. The same literature emphasizes that when a player can change direction, accelerate, decelerate, and recover quickly, the body is better positioned for the shot. For Alcaraz, this means that before the ball arrives, his feet, legs, hips, and trunk are already engaged.